Some events slip into history without explanation, marked by confusion and sorrow. Lives disappear or end under circumstances that challenge every known fact. These strange happenings dodge reason, leaving behind questions with no clear answers. They exist in a space where truth remains distant and closure never comes. In the icy stillness of a Canadian winter, two young siblings, Lilly just 6 and Jack Sullivan aged 4, vanished without leaving even a whisper behind. It was late January 2025 when the Sullivan family set up camp near Banff National Park, a location they'd visited many times before. With snow blanketing the trees and silence reigning over the vast wilderness, nothing seemed unusual until the quiet became too much. That morning, Lilly and Jack went off to explore the area around their tent, their laughter briefly echoing through the pine trees. Their parents, believing the children to be playing nearby, continued with breakfast preparations. But as minutes turned into hours, worry crept in. No calls were answered, no footprints led anywhere useful. What started as a casual outing spiraled into a nightmare. Search teams arrived swiftly. Helicopters swept over the tree lines, search dogs combed every trail, and thermal imaging was used to scan the snowy terrain. Days passed, but not even a mitten, a shoe print, or a thread from their coats came to light. With no evidence of an animal attack, natural disaster, or human foul play, investigators were left in complete confusion. Whispers began to stir among the locals, talk of strange lights seen the night before the incident, flickering silently above the forest canopy. Some mentioned old stories, tales passed down for generations, of people who had simply ceased to exist in those mountains. Officials dismissed the talk, focusing instead on conventional explanations. But with nothing to hold on to, even experienced officers couldn't offer any real answers. The Sullivan case quickly became one of the most baffling files in Canadian history. Unlike other disappearances where some clue eventually surfaces, this one remained sealed in complete silence. Friends and family returned home without closure, clutching only fading memories and hope that never found resolution. Lilly and Jack's names still appear in missing persons records, untouched by time, frozen in that moment of confusion and despair. What happened in that forest remains unknown. Were they lost in a hidden crevice of the land? Did something unseen intercept their path? To this day, their sudden vanishing continues to haunt all who hear of it. A mystery so complete, it feels as if the earth itself decided to keep them. January 2024, 30-year-old Nikki Chang McCain left her apartment in Sacramento, California, after texting her husband that she was headed out to pick up dinner. That message was the last known communication from her. Hours turned into days, and no one heard from her again. Her phone stopped pinging, her social media went silent, and her loved ones were left scrambling for answers in a fog of uncertainty. Nikki had a routine life. She was a mother, a wife, and worked a steady job. There were no signs that she intended to disappear. The area she vanished from wasn't known for high crime, and she wasn't involved in anything suspicious. That's what made her sudden absence so haunting. No warning signs, no clear reason. The police initially treated the situation as a possible voluntary departure, but her family strongly disputed that theory. They insisted she would never walk away from her children or leave without notice. Her car was eventually located several days later, abandoned in a parking lot. Inside, there were no obvious signs of a struggle, but the eeriness of the discovery raised more concerns than it answered. Surveillance footage in the area provided no significant leads. The timeline between her final message and the discovery of her vehicle left a critical gap in understanding what could have happened during that window. Investigators combed through her digital footprint, reaching out to friends, colleagues, and anyone who might have had contact with her in those crucial hours. But the more they searched, the less they found. There were no demands, no ransom, no clue pointing to a larger scheme. Nikki had simply gone out to get food and disappeared into thin air. Months later, her family continues to fight for attention on her case. Posters, social media posts, and community searches have all become a part of their daily life. Despite the silence from official leads, her loved ones refuse to let her name fade into the background. The disappearance of Nikki Chang McCain remains unsolved, a haunting entry in the growing list of people who left for something simple and never returned. What happened after that last text still lingers like an unanswered question in the hearts of those who knew her. On a cold February night in 2024, Charlene Hobbs vanished somewhere between a seaside cafe and her home in East Sussex. At 34, she was known for her quiet routine, an early years educator who led a peaceful life. That evening, she met a friend over coffee, chatted for nearly an hour, then headed toward the small car park just off the main street. CCTV footage showed her unlocking her vehicle, getting in and starting the engine. What happened after remains unknown. When she failed to show up for school the next morning, concerns spread quickly. Her phone was unreachable and messages remained undelivered. By afternoon, police were contacted, and within hours, a search operation began. Authorities followed digital traces, reviewed security videos, and spoke to locals. The last confirmed location? That tiny car park, just steps away from the coast. Her vehicle never appeared on any exit route. No toll camera, no street lens, no fuel station picked her up. It was as if both woman and car were wiped off the grid in seconds. Divers explored the nearby sea, nothing surfaced. Helicopters scanned cliffs, trails, and remote roads. The effort was massive, but it led nowhere. Charlene didn't leave behind a note, withdraw large amounts of cash, or show signs of distress in her personal life. Her phone, bank activity, and digital communications all stopped the same night. Friends described her as content. Her workplace confirmed no recent issues, and there were no legal or health-related complications in her records. Everything pointed toward normalcy, until it didn't. Speculation filled the silence. Some wondered if she had been followed, perhaps abducted by someone familiar with the area. Others spoke in hushed tones of strange disappearances near the coastline over the years, tales never officially acknowledged, but never entirely forgotten either. Months later, no new evidence emerged. The file remained open, gathering dust and occasional questions from investigators who had run out of angles. Her flat stayed untouched, her belongings frozen in time, as if waiting for someone to return. Charlene's disappearance remains one of the most unsettling mysteries in recent British memory. A single drive that never ended, a life paused mid-sentence, and a trail that leads into nothing but fog. In late 2024, the quiet streets of an Australian suburb were shaken by a discovery that stunned the entire nation. 19-year-old Isela Bell, a vibrant young woman known for her bright personality, suddenly vanished without a trace. Friends and family began searching desperately, holding on to the hope that she would return home safe. Days passed, then weeks, and with each moment, concern grew heavier. Authorities launched an extensive search, combing through neighborhoods, interviewing acquaintances, and following every lead they could gather. Yet, every effort seemed to meet a dead end. It wasn't until her body was found hidden inside a household appliance that the reality of her fate became heartbreakingly clear. The location of the discovery raised countless questions. How did she end up there? Who placed her in such a concealed and disturbing spot? Investigators examined every inch of the scene, searching for fingerprints, traces of DNA, or anything that could point to the perpetrator. But even with forensic teams working tirelessly, no clear suspect emerged. Speculation quickly spread among locals. Some believed it could have been someone close to her, while others suspected a stranger with a darker motive. Social media platforms filled with theories, amateur sleuths debating possible timelines and connections. Despite the growing public interest, law enforcement remained tight-lipped, only confirming that the case was being treated as a deliberate act. What made the situation even more baffling was the lack of apparent struggle or forced entry in the area where she was last seen. There were no witnesses stepping forward with conclusive information, and surveillance footage offered more confusion than clarity. It was as if the truth had been carefully buried along with her. Some reports hinted that in the days before her disappearance, Isela seemed unusually withdrawn and had confided vague concerns to a close friend. Whether these concerns were linked to the events that followed is unknown, but it has left investigators wondering if she sensed the danger approaching. This possible clue, though thin, has kept certain leads alive in the ongoing investigation. Months later, the investigation is still active. Detectives continue to retrace her last known movements, hoping fresh eyes or new evidence might surface. The family waits for answers, unable to move forward without knowing who was responsible and why. Cases like Isla's linger in the public mind because they strip away the illusion of safety. They remind us that sometimes, even in familiar places, darkness can be hiding in plain sight. Until someone steps forward or evidence finally cracks the mystery, her story will remain one of Australia's most unsettling and unresolved chapters.